And we now turn to one of the more well-traveled wide receivers who went from Seattle to New York. There's a new number 16 wearing green for the New York Jets. His name is Percy Harvin. He used to wear number 11. He appeared with the Jets this weekend. He just held his first press conference at Florham Park in New Jersey. And the man who was there for NFL media is also there on the phone for us now. We're on the Rich Eisen Show. Albert Breer, how are you, sir?
I'm good, Rich. How you doing?
How was Percy? Tell me about it.
Well, I think one thing that you hear in these situations a lot is players, coaches, the GM saying, we want to move on. What's in the past is in the past. The important things that he hit on, he did concede that there were incidents with Seattle, and those were in reference to the fight with Doug Baldwin in August, the fight with Golden Tate right before the Super Bowl. And then, the second part of it, he didn't concede that he has anger management issues. He didn't say that he had a problem with the way he was being used in the offense. He said that he hadn't asked out a game. So he denied some of it. He accepted other parts of it. But he didn't want to go into any detail. And that's generally the way things work in these types of settings where guys are being brought in. Generally the people who are in charge and then, the player in question will try to spin things forward rather than looking back in the past. And that's certainly the way the Jets approach
Well,
it.
did you get a sense that he understands that this is his last chance to be a big-time, highly paid wide receiver with his contract up? I mean, because this is it. I mean, this is a New York stage. He's got 9 games in which to prove himself within this stage that he can handle it on it and off of it while still being in it. And that his contract is not guaranteed past this season. Mm-hmm. Was it that sense of humility? Did you get that sense at all?
Two things that scared me here, Rich. Okay, and the first thing, to me, I really think that if you're John Idzik, if you're Rex Ryan, you want to set some ground rules, and you want to find out what really happened, and you want to hear it out of your player's mouth. Percy Harvin said in the locker room today that he went to Rex and tried to explain those situations, and Rex said, I don't want to hear about it. Okay. We're going to be focusing on what's going to be happening here going forward. Rex confirmed that in his press conference. I would think that you'd want to know at least what happened and try to get an idea of what's going to happen going forward. The other thing that to me would be a little scary is you've lost 2 jobs now, and I guess that's relative because he was traded, not cut, but you've lost 2 jobs now in I think, what were we talking, 18, 19 months, something like that, right?
Yep.
I asked him flat out, I said, do you think that you need to change? I mean, you've lost 2 jobs. You've been with, 2 franchises that paid you. One spent a first-round pick on you. The other one paid you $19 million over the last year and a half. They both gave up on you. Do you think that you need to make changes? And he, in effect, answered no. Now, both you and I know that what players say publicly and what players say privately can differ sometimes. So maybe he is conceding guilt and trying to make changes behind the scenes. But I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of an acknowledgement of what's happened in the past, and that it's just not right that a player of his stature is moved twice in that short amount of time, and that there's something being done to fix it. And that was really kind of the issue that I had with what went on here over the last couple hours.
Man, and with Rex not asking him about it, that might be just his way of throwing his arm around him and saying what's in the past is in the past, and just hoping that he will respond to that style of coaching of just saying, hey, man, we're starting from a clean slate, as opposed to finding out what it was, essentially saying this is what it's going to have to be here, and now we have a clean slate. Idzik apparently was told what had happened by John Schneider. Yep. What about Izzik's press conference about bringing this young man in with 9 games left on the docket, trying to evaluate a quarterback at the same time for a coach that everybody thinks is fired already? What'd you hear from the general manager?
Well, I do think that this part of this is trying to get a cleaner evaluation on Geno Smith, because at this point you got 6 losses. You're almost certainly not going to the playoffs. You have to figure out what you have with your young player at that position. You know what Michael Vick is. You know Michael Vick's not the future. It only makes sense now to try to get the most thorough evaluation on Geno, and I think Percy helps them do that. Now you can put him in there with Eric Decker and Jason Morrow and Chris Johnson and Chris Iver, and you find out what you have. He really didn't go into much of that. Again, it was more just we're spinning this forward. We think it can help us today at receiver, and that's why we were doing it. And he's spoken a lot of cliches, but I mean, from his standpoint, and remember, where Rex's standpoint, like you said, is to look at the small picture and look at the micro of what's happening this week and how do I get the team ready to play the Bills. John Idzik's job to look at the macro. And the macro issue right now for the Jets is the quarterback position and what it's going to look like going forward. And they need to figure out before next year's draft whether or not Geno Smith is the answer at that position. And if he isn't, then they got to start looking at the Marcus Mariotas and the Jameis Winstons and the Connor Cooks and all of those guys.
Jameis Winston in this stage. Let's please. Speaking as a member of the media, I can't.
I mean, a perfect Jet.
I don't know if you can see me right now, Albert, but my head is exploding. My head just exploded on television.
We might move our operations from Culver to Florham Park.
Oh, my goodness gracious. Because we are fair and balanced, we're talking about a 1-6 team here. Let's talk about other teams that are at the bottom. Washington has got Colt McCoy starting at quarterback. Is that what? Are we going to see Colt McCoy under center 1 week from tonight in Dallas?
I think their focus in Washington has gone from trying to figure out what they have in Kirk Cousins and to some degree showcasing him, and then, leaving the chance out there that maybe he could be a better answer for the future than Robert Griffin III. Now it's gone to let's tread water. Let's figure out how we can get back to the point where we have a competent football team, and our team is still growing when Robert Griffin III gets in there. Look, I mean, this season's been, on a larger scale, a disaster there. It hasn't worked out. The quarterback got hurt. They don't have any sort of chance at catching Dallas in the NFC East or Philly in the NFC East right now. That said, their schedule does soften considerably in November and December, and they do have a shot to string some wins together. And Jay Gruden going into year two, would obviously like to have that momentum. So I think part of this now is about treading water and finding a way to get yourself where the team is improving, get yourself into a position where the team's improving when Robert Griffin III comes back. And Kirk Cousins was just turning the ball over way too much for them to do that. So, I think Colt McCoy then becomes, in essence, a better stopgap, so a better bridge to get you back to RG3.
So then, yes or no, do we see him, or you think RG3's got a shot for Monday?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I haven't gotten a solid answer out of there yet, but I did talk with a couple people this morning, and they weren't ruling out the possibility. And generally, when you've taken a step out the door on a quarterback like that, you don't turn around. So my guess is that if Robert Griffin III can't come back this week to play the Cowboys, then it's going to be Colt McCoy.
Thanks very much, Albert. Appreciate it.
You got it, Rich.
You bet. That's Albert Breer. You can read him on NFL.com and follow him at Albert Breer on Twitter.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.